Saga from Georgia. Chapter 2. In the Dragon King's castle. After having traveled so much, she finally reached the crossroads of which her father had told her about. The road then branched off in 4 directions, and she decreased the horse's speed. But her heart told her to move on through the road ahead. She then loosened the horse's reins, gave it some spurs, and it went flying like an arrow. To the extent that the journey was prolonged, the darkness was increasing, and the surroundings becoming more and more deserted. Villages and populations were being left behind and getting farther and farther away, but the brave knight was not afraid. At nightfall, she saw in the distance the silhouette of a castle. Expecting to find there a hospitable reception, she pressed the spurs even more on the flanks of a horse, already tired of running so much. Moving a little farther, she saw that the castle looked very strange, and getting closer, she confronted several open-mouthed dragons, forming a circle around the building. She then realized that, in reality, it could only be the dwelling of the Dragon King, that she used to hear about, when she was still a child. Suddenly, from inside came out a man and, approaching her, said ironically, "See here, what good bite for my king." But those words did not cause her any fear. Jumping off the horse quickly, she handed the reins to one of the dragons and, bravely contemplating that strange man, said to him in an authoritative tone, "Take me to your king." And she said that, expecting that she could later continue her journey. An official took her into the castle and, on the way, maliciously exclaimed, "What a pity, having to broil such a nice young man on a skewer." Not even now, she cared about the words, and just accompanied him from the first to the second room, dazzled by the pomp of what she was seeing. There were in the palace, rooms which were wholly of gold, others that were entirely of silver, and still others which were lined with rich carpets from ground to ceiling, and illuminated by countless torches. The scenery, where everything glowed and twinkled in varied colors, was really wonderful, and the treasurer's daughter contemplated all this with high admiration. Lastly, she was taken to one of the innermost halls. "Here, young man, you remain waiting, while I will announce you to my king," said the man. He closed the door and was gone. But, entertained as she was, in contemplation of those charms, she didn't even notice the man's departure. The walls were lined with extraordinary fabrics, upon which shone here and there gigantic precious stones and golden stars. On the floor, there were beautiful carpets whose embroideries configured bouquets of flowers that looked natural. By the walls, there were exuberant resting beds, half hidden among trees from whose branches hung apples made of gold and silver. The air was filled with the pleasant scent of flowers. For a long time, the treasurer's daughter stood there, watching and admiring those wonders. Then, she walked around, going from place to place until getting tired, when she decided to lie down on one of those soft resting beds that seemed to be inviting her to it, since a long time ago. The night had already fallen, and no one showed up in the room. She then started to wonder and reflect on her destiny. Suddenly, someone knocked on the door and 6 beautiful maidens, wrapped in silver robes, entered the hall. Each one held a golden tray in their hands, with sweets and strange fruits, sparkling wines and other sweetened and fragrant drinks. They put everything on a table and, leaning towards the young man, invited him to serve his supper there. Tired as she was of such a long trip, and already feeling very hungry and thirsty, the young woman quickly began to serve her meal with very good appetite. Right now, one of the maidens, the most beautiful of all, asked the other maidens to play and sing. Immediately, accompanying the sounds of their instruments, they started singing. They sang a happy song, to which rhythm the most beautiful began to dance. And so soft and hasty were the movements and twists of her dance, and so charming was herself, that the treasurer's daughter, taken by fascination, even forgot to eat and drink, and couldn't look away from her. Finished the dance, the other maidens came to the boy, requesting him, insistently, to drink the wine. The treasurer's daughter then did as they asked, and after a while, she was so drunk that, falling into one of those soft resting beds, plunged quickly into the deepest sleep. When she woke up, it was already the next day and almost noon. She then tried to remember what had happened the day before. Making the sign of the cross, she approached the window. But as soon as the door opened, she walked away in horror and fell again into that bed. Through her face, bitter tears shed down, not because of herself, but of her gleeful sisters and of all that was good in her homeland, coming to her mind at that moment. Crying all the time, she didn't even notice that the next night had already arrived. So, like the day before, someone knocked on the door, and the 6 beautiful girls came in again. But, this time, accompanied by a 7th, whose beauty the young prisoner could not contemplate without admiration. Her dress, of a transparent and lightweight fabric, fell in deep waves, from the slim waist to the delicate feet. Her eyes glittered like stars. Her black braids slid like snakes from the head to the floor. Her scarlet-red lips opened slightly, letting see rows of teeth as white as pearls. Dazzled by so magnificent beauty, the treasurer's daughter slipped from her rest bed and, approaching the princess, humbly bowed in front of her, as if from her lips expected an order. So the beautiful girl took the young stranger by the hand and, kindly, led him back to bed. Then, she made a gesture suggesting him to lie down again, and stood contemplating him with glamorous look. However, realizing that there were, on the young man's face, still traces of bitterness, she made a sign to her girlfriends, indicating that they should play and sing again. She thought that, with this, she would finally comfort the embittered visitor. But neither the singing, nor the dancing, were able to frighten away his discontent. So she herself began to dance. And her dance was so wonderful, that the disconsolate young woman could not help but be enchanted, albeit thoughtfully. Seeing then, that neither her dance was being able to produce in the conduct of the young man the desired effect, she made another sign to her companions, asking them to withdraw and leave them alone in the room, and, after the other maidens were gone, she said, "A fact like this, of a young man, placed under my gaze, not to throw himself immediately at my feet and fold himself to my amorous insinuations, has never happened." So the treasurer's daughter answered sadly, "I know that your words are true, and you really fascinated me, but I admire you just as a woman admires another woman, because I am also a girl." The magnificent daughter of the Dragon King was then very surprised, and asked her, "Who forced you to leave your parents' house and go in search of a right encounter with death? Didn't you realize what kind of place this castle is? You are under the powers of my father, the Dragon King, and he never allowed those who came here to leave with life. Thinking that you were a boy, he sent you the most beautiful girls in the castle to seduce you. But, since this was not possible, he asked me to come too and, with my seductive beauty, try to set your icy heart on fire. And in fact, if you were a boy, I would have succeeded. But it matters little, for you will not escape your destiny. Even being intelligent and courageous, you are destined to die. I'm not afraid, neither of suffering nor of death, answered the girl. For what saddens me and fills me with despair is not exactly that, but the fear of not being able to fulfill the mission that my father trusted me. And, explaining to the Dragon King's daughter the reason why she could not give up undertaking her trip, she begged her, sobbing, "Help me, princess, to fulfill my mission." The princess thought for a moment, and replied, "How can this be done? I don't know, but I quickly got fond of you, and it would be very nice for me to be able to help you save yourself and fulfill your mission. However, I will only do it on one condition, which is that you, when become a man, come back and take me for your wife. Do you swear you'll do that?" "Why do you mock me, princess?" said the treasurer's daughter, with a shy smile. "You well know, much better than me, that I will never become a man." But the daughter of the Dragon King answered her with the firmest conviction, "You will become a man, and furthermore, I think, a great man. But, before that, you will face many misfortunes, and endure many sufferings." "Well, princess," replied the young foreigner, "I swear that, if your predictions really come true, I will face and overcome all obstacles, to finally come back and take you as my wife." The princess then replied, "I believe your words. Early tomorrow, my horse will be waiting for you by the castle door. Take it and, whenever you are in doubt, or in the imminence of a great danger, ask it for advice. Also accept this ring. It contains a deadly poison, and therefore, at a time of great risks, may be useful to you. As for me, I will go to my father and tell him that I chose the young foreigner as fiancé. With this, he will allow you to take your trip." With these words, the Dragon King's daughter left the room. The next morning, she went to her father and, communicating her decision, obtained his consent. Then, she ordered one of the servants to take the horse to the exit of the castle, and, in the opportunity, she sent to the girl a beautiful dress, made with gold thread and adorned with precious stones, as a parting gift. End of chapter 2.